What concubines and servants really did in the Bible. When you think of concubines and servants in the Bible, what comes to mind? Probably silent sideline figures, right? Women who exist just for childbirth and servitude. They're the footnotes of history, the background characters in a story that's not about them. But what if that picture is totally wrong? What if it's not just incomplete, but a deliberate misreading? What if these women, hidden in plain sight, were actually some of the secret architects of ancient Israel? We're about to see how these women, whose names we barely know, founded tribes, gave God a name, and brought kings to their knees. What they really did might just change how you read the Bible forever. So this traditional view of these women as just passive and powerless, it isn't just incomplete, it's a total distortion. It takes a complex society and flattens it, silencing women who had a huge impact. These women weren't just property. Sure, their status was lower than a primary wife's, but they had recognized positions and even legal protections. Exodus 21 actually lays out rules to make sure a concubine received food, clothing, and marital rights. It wasn't equality, but it wasn't nothing. It's put them in a unique and often tricky position inside the household. It's a position that gave them their own kind of influence. To get their real story, you have to look past the surface and see the massive consequences of their actions. Let's start with Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian servant. The story usually casts her as just a surrogate, a means to an end for an infertile wife. After she conceives a child with Abraham, Sarah treats her so harshly that she flees into the desert, alone and desperate. But what happens next is extraordinary. In the wilderness, an angel of the Lord finds her and promises that her descendants will be too numerous to count. And here, in this moment of complete powerlessness, Hagar does something astounding. She responds with a profound act of theological insight. She gives God a name. She calls him El-Roi, which means the God who sees me. Think about that for a second. This is staggering. Hagar, a foreign-born slave, becomes the very first person in the Bible to give God a name. She isn't a passive victim. In her darkest hour, she becomes a theologian. It's offering a name for God, the God who sees me, that shapes our understanding of his nature forever. Next up, Bilhah and Zilpah. They were the servants of Rachel and Leah, the wives of Jacob, and just like Hagar, they're given to Jacob to have kids when his primary wives couldn't. It's easy to write them off as just footnotes in the drama between two jealous sisters. But look at what they actually did. Bilhah had 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah also had 2, Gad and Asher. Now, these weren't just for bonus sons. These men became the founders of 4 of the 12 tribes of Israel. Let that sink in. A full third of the nation of Israel descends from these 2 so-called secondary women. Their sons weren't just part of the family, they were foundational. Pillars of the very nation that would inherit God's promise. Through them, servants became matriarchs. But maybe the most dramatic and overlooked story of all is Rizpah's. Rizpah was one of King Saul's concubines. Now, after Saul dies, a brutal famine grips the land for 3 years. To fix things, King David is told he needs to make amends with the group Saul had wronged, the Gibeonites. Their price: the lives of 7 of Saul's male descendants, including Rizpah's 2 sons. Their bodies are then left exposed on a hill, a sign of ultimate disgrace. But Rizpah, she refuses to let that be the end of their story. She takes sackcloth and begins a silent public vigil over her sons' bodies. For months from the start of the harvest until the rains finally came, she stood guard, day and night, fending off birds and wild animals. This wasn't just a mother's grief. It was a silent, powerful, and very public act of political protest. Her quiet, relentless courage was a public shaming of the king. Her vigil worked. It shamed King David so much that he was forced to act. He finally had the bodies taken down, gave them a proper royal burial, and ended the crisis. Think about it, Rizpah, a lone woman with 0 official power, held a king accountable and changed the fate of the nation. Hagar the theologian, Bilhah and Zilpah, the nation builders, Rizpah, the political protester. These women were not passive victims. They were sharp, strategic, and operated in a sphere of influence that was all their own. Their power didn't come from a throne or a battlefield. It came from their insight, their children, and their unbreakable courage. They show us that real influence can come from anywhere, and that sometimes the very people history tries to silence are the ones who secretly shaped it. Their stories aren't footnotes, they're foundational threads woven into the very fabric of the Bible. What other overlooked women in these stories have powerful tales to tell? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.